Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
Good morning, everyone. It is Wednesday, May 8th, 2024. My name is John Pieranunzi. This is the opening swing. Let's begin today, as we always do, with our news flow. Out of Europe, not really much. Again, lighter on the news. German industrial production, Italian retail sales, Brazilian retail sales, nothing really moved us. Today, during the U.S. hours, we have we had mortgage applications. It's out. Wholesale inventories, rather minor, and the petroleum report for anyone that trades the energy complex. We have some Fed speakers of note. Jefferson at 11, Collins at 11:45, Cook at 1:30. Also, there's Cook, Jefferson at 11 a.m. May have mentioned that one. The 10-year note auction at 1, which we should be reasonably attentive to, and the 4-month bill auction, which is more minor. So that's what we have on the docket today. For news, not a bunch unless someone from the Fed says something out of line. Here, let's quickly look at our weekly chart. Now, the big thing that we're looking at on the weekly chart, the thing that I've been emphasizing, we've had price discovery lower, potential like trying to V-bottom on news, and we have broken our prior balance higher. The line of demarcation for our prior balance is right around the 5150s. That sort of broad zone. Our prior week settle is 5154 3/4. We're above that. It's untested. We're holding above the prior week's range. So on the weekly time frame, the bias is higher. As long as we're above the prior week's range and prior week settle, the bias is higher on the weekly time frame. Things could change on smaller time frames, though. We've taken our initial target that we had, which was the 52.13 quarters. We took that yesterday. The next target higher on the weekly time frame is the 52.50 region, which is up here. And the important target on the weekly time frame lower is the 51.50s. So that's what we're looking at. Let's take a look at our daily chart, which I'm not sure why it's popping up here. Pause this. Now here's our daily chart. Things to be aware of on the daily chart, which we can look at. I won't go over everything in that much detail, but here's our April range. What I talked about recently is how we kind of opened the week right around the middle of the April range and have pushed higher above the midline of the April's range, not quite to the 3/4 mark, which is the 52.40 region, but we are above our prior balance and holding. To notice on this push higher, really this push lower too, we have a push lower that was very wide, an attempt to return, took out the low, and then from here, 3 pretty wide ranging days that just smashed through our prior balance area here. And then we have yesterday, which was a tighter day. So we have this, it's kind of like the market is moving higher very freely and then hits into its resistance and things slow down. So the question for us today is, okay, we hit some resistance, it appears, and we've slowed down, the range is tightened. So do we take out the low or do we take out the high? Well, we've already taken out the RTH low. So now it's just the full session low. So there's a little bit more edge. Normally in a price discovery higher situation, we're looking at edge to take out the high. With the way this is trading now and due to the context, we're looking at, for me, more likely that we're going to test the low. And what will happen at that? It might happen now. It's actually, like I said, we've gotten the RTH low already. Sometimes as well, when there's less news and the market gets slow, you see these moves happen at weird times. But anyway, that's what we're looking at on the daily chart. Let's move to a smaller time frame chart here. Okay, so this is a PNF chart. It's actually a 4x10 PNF chart, which is a higher time frame PNF chart. This blue line right here, this is the beginning of our week. So we can see right here is where we broke out higher. I'm looking at this chart to kind of like pretty clearly show what the auction's doing. We have this distribution here, and we have this distribution here, which are very important. And then we have our breakout region, which is right here, our prior week's high, down to really, this is all kind of one area in here, in my opinion. And then above we have our 36s. And then above that, we get into the 50s. So this is our landscape today. And the reason I'm looking at this is just we have this area of balance right here, which we've been holding. However, we've started to make lower highs in this. And then below we have this area, which is, in my opinion, the area to be tested if we breach this. So the thing that I'm looking at right here, this is a very clear auction. The auction is very clear in terms of what's going on. Often when the auction is very clear and the tests are clear, the execution can get more difficult because it's not hard to see the areas that we want to trade today. So when that happens, it can just get a little bit more confusing, like in terms of the execution, as opposed to when the targets are less clear. Sometimes the setups are more clear, but the targets are harder. So it's just the puzzle that we play every day. We like it. That's why we do it. So let's go ahead and move to a smaller time frame chart and try to game plan some of this price action. Okay, so here is a 8-box chart. Let's go over some ideas for what might happen today. The first areas I'm interested in, obviously, like I said, this 98 to 02, this LVN here, this represents yesterday's full session low. Like I said, we've already taken the RTH low. So what I'm expecting, in between this area, let's take a look at what's going on here and be aware. This area from about 5,200 up to 5,220. This is to me, this is potentially choppy in this area. Like what we want to be aware of is if this sort of, and everybody knows this is not like a surprise to anybody that trades this product, in my opinion. So what we want to be aware of here is if this is whether or not this sort of area gets either stretched or broken. So if we stretch it, what you might see is like right now, pre-open, we might see a push down into this area. It kind of chops around and then reverts higher, which that could signify support. Wouldn't really matter that much to me unless we breach this. Similarly, we could go up to here, test this. Unless we break and hold, find support and can continue, it's not going to be a big deal to me because this range this area is going to be pretty choppy. I would assume. So if we're doing any of this, I'm not going to be interested. Maybe there will be a shot, we get a test lower that looks good and we can play a reversion trade. Same thing above, maybe we get this and we can trade a reversion. I would say trading the reversion lower would be a lot more risky because the bias has been higher. So if we start to get above yesterday's VPOC and you think it's a good sale, it might be, and we get a flush, but we also, all of the nervous shorts that thought that we were going to take out the O's might get nervous and try to buy it back, and we continue. So I think the reversion long is probably more viable. However, if there's, it gets a little bit more difficult when these ranges are tightened. So let's talk about what happens if the ranges get broken, because that'll be the more interesting trade. So we have this area. So let's talk about bearish ideas first. So really, just very clearly, we have our settlement as well, which is an important area. So if we get into this area here, I would expect that the initial push into this area would give us an attempt at support. Now, whether this support is a reversal or a pullback, I think settlement will be an important area to be aware of. If we can get a higher low and get through settlement, then maybe it's reversion. But if you see us kind of round off and go lower, then obviously we're looking for a retest of the lows and potentially some excursion lower. If we get excursion lower, we're 100%, we're looking for this area, the 80s, this broad area for basically call it 80 up to 90, this HVN. If we lose the O's and we cannot get back, I will be targeting this region if we lose this price and don't get it back. Similarly, we'll go over on the high side. It's basically the tests are very clear. If we see some reversion here and we get above settlement and we're holding and pullbacks, find higher lows and are able to continue, then obviously at that point, the overnight high will already be taken and we'll be looking for a test of the RTH high, yesterday's RTH high, which is also our full session high. Now, like I said, the big thing we have to be aware of, a test of the high, we saw this range contracting yesterday. So I would expect if we do get a test of the high today, I would expect likely resistance and continuation of sort of a sloppy, just ranges stretched reversion, which would be a difficult trade. So I want to flag that for something that could happen on the high. Let's continue for what happens if we move through the high. Just for completion here. So for anything bullish, we'd be looking for this area to be held, pushed above, continuation, and then the high is our next target, obviously. If we get the high and then price can still hold above settlement, quickly reject, then we're looking for 36s. 36s would be a great target for excursion today. We might not get it. Like I said, we're looking for potential stretches and then falls back. But if the higher lows persist, we could see the squeeze continue. If we get through the 36s, the target for me today is the 50 range. Call it 55 to 45. That would where I'd be targeting if we really can find some juice out of here. So we're just going over that for the completion of what happens if we flip long today. Let's talk a little bit more about if we continue on the selling path. So like I said, we could be seeing test, go up higher. It doesn't mean anything unless we breach this. Go, fall lower. And if we get below here, then we're looking for this price, obviously. Now, if we get to this zone, 70s to 80s roughly, again, I'm flagging. This could be something that reverts higher. If we test this area and get a strong reversion back above the O's, and we're back above the O's, then it's like we get back into the situation where we're trading here. And we know what can happen if we trade here. We could potentially just chop, or we could get above and do what I just talked about. So that's one thing that could happen. Now, if we don't do that, and instead we see something like, let's do this. If we don't do that, if we see something like the market drops into the O's and then just another precipitous drop into the 80, 85 region, then we're here and we try to revert, and you see one of these like a rounded top type of thing, then and we breach the low once again, then very clearly the next target we'd be looking for, really clearly, obviously, this area, which is a key area. I would expect support ahead of the prior week's high today. I would expect it ahead of the prior week's high. It's some type of rounded bottom that gets back above this key LVN and maybe begins to revert. That's what I'd be expecting initially. However, there's definitely potential. Like if there's a lot of selling today, there is potential. There's potential for us to get all the way back into the prior weeks into this area. This is below one vol sig down. So in terms of excursion to this area, this is a VWAP anchored from the lows. or yeah, from the lows. So if we get into this area again, I would initially be expecting support. But again, this area down in this area, if we get down to here, this would, you know, like I said, very clear auction levels from we're here and we're trading this range. We break it, we're trading this range. We get down into here, then we're in a mess, and each one becomes sort of the line of demarcation for where we're trading. Like, are we going to fill in this area? Are we going to fill in this area? So there's potential for price movement to move lower. I'm not going to go over that whole path because these are, once we get down to here, we know the prices that we're looking for because we've talked about them so much. You know, we have this whole area, we have clear targets down here, 54.75, this whole region, and below here, we know we're looking for the 45s, which is an HVN, and really that this whole zone again, which is the 41s. Prior weekly VPOC is in the 45 region, so this is a very busy area. If we get down to here, I would expect it to get choppy, like I said, and revert. So that's what I'm seeing today. The key to remember for today, like I said, there's very clear auction levels. I would not get too zoomed in to smaller time frame charts today. I would be looking at the bigger picture and being aware of what tests you're expecting to be hit, where you want to trade for those tests. You know, the tests, like I said, the tests are very clear. How they shape up might not. I do think we might get a little bit of movement, but we could get a little more. But overall, on a day with no news, you still want to be careful. But I think there's some clear tests that we could get a shot at trading for today. And I hope these plans helped you if you are trying to clock some ticks on those tests like I am. That'll close it up for today. I want to wish everybody the best day they can have. I hope that everyone can find a way to improve their trading and their overall life today. And of course, as always, I hope that you can make somebody else smile because that's what's most important. So I guess there's nothing left to do except to see if we're going to break yesterday's low and see how we can use that information to clock some ticks. Have a great day, everyone. I'll see you tomorrow.